Jake Morrison sat on the cold metal floor of his cell and stared at the wall. He had been counting the days since the Krath patrol ship seized his cargo vessel. 6 months, 183 days in this place they called a detention complex, though everyone knew it was just a prison for anyone the Krath wanted to forget about. The charges against him were fake. Smuggling, they said. Jake had been hauling legitimate medical supplies to a colony world when the patrol stopped him. They found nothing illegal. So, they planted evidence. 3 days later, he was here. No trial. No lawyer. No chance to contact anyone back home on Earth. The cell was barely 3 meters square. A sleeping platform jutted from one wall. A waste unit sat in the corner. That was everything. The walls were gray metal. The door was solid except for a small slot at the bottom where they pushed food trays twice a day. Cameras watched from 3 corners. The guards wanted to see everything. Jake heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots. Multiple guards. He stood up slowly, his muscles stiff from sitting too long. The door opened with a hiss of hydraulics. Guard Captain Connor stepped inside. He was Krath, like most of the facility staff. Tall and broad, with dark gray skin, and 4 yellow eyes, arranged in a square pattern on his face. He wore black armor and carried a shock stick on his belt. 2 other guards stood behind him in the corridor. Morrison, Connor said. His voice came through a translator device on his collar. "We have a gift for you." Jake said nothing. Gifts from the guards were never good things. Connor reached back and grabbed something from one of the other guards. He pulled it forward and threw it into the cell. The thing hit the floor with a sickening thud. It was a person. Small, thin, with pale blue skin. "Her name is Vera," Connor said. "She is Velix." "You know what that means?" Jake knelt beside the girl. She was not moving. He could see her chest rising and falling, so she was alive, but barely. "I know," he said quietly. The Velix were known across the galaxy for 2 things. They were fragile, and they were empaths. They could sense emotions. "Good," Connor said. "Then you know she is useless now. We tried to get information from her. She would not talk. We tried harder. She broke. So now she is yours. Entertainment." Jake looked up at Connor. "Entertainment?" "Yes." Connor smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Most prisoners here, when we give them a cellmate, they fight over food, over water, over the sleeping platform. Sometimes they kill each other. That is entertaining. Or sometimes they just ignore each other until one dies. That is less entertaining, but still interesting. He paused. "We are curious what a human will do. We have bets running. I bet you will ignore her until she dies in 3 days. Guard Felix thinks you will hurt her just to hear her scream. Guard Marcus thinks you will try to help her, but give up after 1 day when you realize she takes your food and water." Jake turned back to Vera. He could see her injuries now. Burns covered her arms and torso. One of her forearms was bent at a wrong angle. Broken. Her face was bruised. There was dried blood in her white hair. "What do you want from me?" Jake asked. "Nothing," Connor said. "Just be yourself. We will watch. We will see what humans are really like when no one is judging them. When there are no consequences." He turned to leave. "Oh, and Morrison? Your food ration is now split between 2 people. Your water ration is now split between 2 people. Choose how you share it. Or do not share it. We do not care." The door closed. The locks engaged with a solid clunk. Jake sat there for a long moment, staring at Vera. She had not moved. Her breathing was shallow. He could see infection around some of the burns. Without treatment, she would die. Even with treatment, she might die. He stood up and walked to the corner where he kept his few possessions: a spare shirt, a thin blanket, a cup for water. He took the cup and moved to the small sink built into the wall. The facility gave each cell running water, though it tasted like metal and chemicals. He filled the cup. Jake knelt beside Vera again. He lifted her head carefully, supporting it with one hand. Can you hear me? He asked. Her eyes opened slowly. They were completely silver, with no pupils. Tears ran down her cheeks. Please, she whispered. The word came through his own translator implant, a standard device most space travelers had installed. Please, no more. I am not going to hurt you, Jake said. I am going to help you. Can you drink? She stared at him. Confusion crossed her face, then fear. No trick, Jake said. I promise. He held the cup to her lips. She drank a little, then coughed. Water spilled down her chin. Jake waited, then offered the cup again. This time, she drank more. Thank you, she whispered. Jake set the cup aside and examined her injuries more closely. The broken arm was the worst immediate problem. If it healed wrong, she would never use it properly again. He looked at his spare shirt. It was the only extra clothing he had. He picked it up and began tearing it into strips. What are you doing? Vera asked. Her voice was weak. Making a splint, Jake said. For your arm. Why? Because it is broken. No, Vera said. Why help me? You do not know me. Jake paused. He looked at her. You are hurt. I can help. That is enough reason. He worked carefully, straightening her broken arm as gently as he could. She cried out in pain but did not pull away. He used strips of cloth to pad the arm, then used the longer strips to bind it straight. It was not a good splint. A real doctor would do much better. But it was better than nothing. Next, he cleaned her burns with water and pieces of his torn shirt. She whimpered but stayed still. Some of the burns were deep. They would scar. But at least they would be clean now. When he finished, Jake moved her carefully onto the sleeping platform. He took his blanket and covered her with it. She looked up at him with those silver eyes. You are giving me your bed? She asked. You need it more than I do, Jake said. I will sleep on the floor. But the guards. Let me worry about the guards. The food slot at the bottom of the door opened. A single tray slid through. Jake picked it up. On it was half a meal. Usually, he got a full meal, though it was never enough to make him feel truly full. Now it was half that. He looked at the gray protein bar and the small container of vegetable paste. Then, he looked at Vera. She was watching him. He could see the fear in her eyes. She expected him to eat it all. She expected him to leave her with nothing. Jake broke the protein bar in half. He opened the vegetable paste and divided it as evenly as he could into 2 portions. He brought half to Vera. Eat, he said. But you, eat, he repeated. You need strength to heal. She took the food with shaking hands. She ate slowly, as if she could not believe it was real. When she finished, she looked at him again. The guards were right, she said quietly. You are trying to help me. Yes. They will punish you for it. Probably. Then why? Jake sat down against the wall. He ate his half of the meal. It was not nearly enough. His stomach still felt empty. But he had eaten worse. He had gone hungrier. Because it is the right thing to do, he said finally. Vera was quiet for a long time. Then she spoke again. My name is Vera. I am from the 4th planet in the Velix home system. I was a research assistant on a science vessel. The Krath took us 3 weeks ago. They wanted information about Velix defensive systems. I did not know anything. I tried to tell them. They did not believe me. I am Jake, he said. From Earth. I was a cargo hauler. The Krath wanted someone to blame for something, and I was convenient. Do you have family? Vera asked. A sister. Back on Earth. She probably thinks I am dead by now. I have a brother, Vera said. He is younger. He will be worried. They sat in silence for a while. Up in the corner of the cell, Jake could see the camera watching them. Red light blinking. Recording everything. The guards would be watching this. They would be angry that he was not giving them the show they wanted. Let them be angry, Jake thought. He had already lost his freedom. He had already lost 6 months of his life. But he had not lost himself. He had not lost the ability to choose to do the right thing. Even here, even in this place, Vera's breathing became slower and steadier. She was falling asleep. For the first time in weeks, she felt safe enough to rest. Jake leaned his head back against the cold wall and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Connor would make sure of that. But tonight, one person was sleeping safely who otherwise would have died alone and afraid. That was enough. That was worth whatever came next. 7 days passed. Jake gave Vera half of every meal. He gave her most of the water. He cleaned her wounds twice a day with careful hands. Her burns began to heal slowly. The broken arm stayed in the makeshift splint. She could move it a little now without screaming. But the guards noticed. They were not happy. On the 8th day, Connor came back to the cell. He did not look pleased. "You are still keeping her alive," he said. Jake stood between Connor and Vera. "Yes. You are sharing your food and water." "Yes." Connor tilted his head. All 4 of his eyes studied Jake. "You are making this boring." "Morrison." The other guards are getting angry. They want their entertainment. They want to see what happens when you get hungry enough, when you get thirsty enough, when you finally realize she is taking your resources and giving you nothing in return. "She is not a thing," Jake said. "She is a person." "She is Velix," Connor said, as if that explained everything. "They are weak. They break easily. She is already broken." "Why are you protecting broken goods?" Jake did not answer. Connor stepped closer. "I am going to make this more interesting," he said. "Come with me." "Where?" "Recreation area. You get to fight." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had heard about the recreation area. Prisoners were taken there and forced to fight each other while guards watched and placed bets. Most fights ended with someone in the medical unit. Some fights ended with someone dead. "And if I refuse?" Jake asked. Connor smiled. "Then I take Vera instead. She can fight. Or she can simply die while everyone watches. Your choice." Jake looked back at Vera. She was sitting up on the sleeping platform, her silver eyes wide with fear. She shook her head slightly, telling him not to go. But they both knew he had no choice. "Fine," Jake said. "I will fight." 2 guards came into the cell and grabbed Jake by the arms. They pulled him out into the corridor. Connor followed behind. They walked through the prison complex, past rows of cells. Other prisoners watched through the small windows in their doors. Some looked curious. Most looked away. They had seen this before. The recreation area was a large circular room with high walls. The floor was hard concrete. Lights blazed from the ceiling. Around the edges of the room, guards stood watching. Some held weapons. Others held data pads where they recorded their bets. In the center of the room stood a massive figure. He was Tharnok, a species known for their size and strength. He had to be over 2.5 meters tall, and easily twice Jake's weight. His skin was dark red and covered in thick scales. His arms were the size of tree trunks. "This is Brutus," Connor said. "He has fought in the recreation area 14 times. He has won every time. Good luck, human." The guards shoved Jake forward into the center of the room. Brutus looked down at him. The Tharnok did not look excited. He looked tired. Sad, even. "I do not want to fight you," Brutus said quietly. His voice was deep and rumbling. "I do not want to fight you either," Jake said. "Then we both have no choice." Brutus raised his massive fists. "I am sorry." The guards shouted for them to begin. Brutus charged forward with surprising speed for someone his size. Jake dove to the side, rolling across the concrete. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it. He came up to his feet and backed away quickly. Brutus turned and came at him again. This time Jake could not dodge completely. The Tharnok's fist caught him in the ribs. Jake felt something crack. He flew backward and hit the ground hard. The air rushed out of his lungs. The guards cheered. They were enjoying this. Jake forced himself to stand. Every breath hurt. He tasted blood in his mouth. Brutus came at him again. Slower this time. The Tharnok did not want to do this. Jake could see it in his eyes. But Brutus had to fight. just like Jake had to fight, or someone else would suffer. Jake waited until the last second, then dropped low and swept Brutus's legs. The massive Tharnock crashed to the ground with a boom that shook the floor. Before Brutus could get up, Jake moved behind him and wrapped his arm around the Tharnock's thick neck. It was not a strong hold. Jake was not strong enough to choke someone Brutus's size, but he positioned himself so it looked like he was trying. "I am not going to kill you," Jake whispered in Brutus's ear. "When I let go, stay down. Pretend I knocked you out." And Brutus hesitated, then nodded slightly. Jake held the position for a few more seconds, then released and rolled away. He stood up, breathing hard. Brutus lay on the ground, not moving. "Get up!" Connor shouted at Brutus. "Get up and fight." Brutus did not move. Connor stormed into the room. He kicked Brutus in the side. "I said get up!" Jake stepped forward. "He is done. I won." Connor spun to face him. All four eyes burned with anger. "You did not win. You did not kill him. You did not even hurt him properly. You showed mercy." He spat the word like it was poison. "That is not how this works, Morrison. You fight until someone cannot fight anymore. You fight until someone begs for death. You do not show mercy." "I will not kill someone who does not deserve to die," Jake said. Connor's shock stick was in his hand before Jake could react. The electric current hit Jake in the chest. Every muscle in his body locked up. He fell to the ground, unable to move, unable to breathe. The pain was incredible. "You will learn," Connor said. He hit Jake with the shock stick again. And again, Jake's vision went dark. He could hear the guards laughing. He could hear Connor saying something about teaching humans their place. Then, everything disappeared. When Jake woke up, he was back in his cell. Vera was leaning over him, her 4 hands touching his face gently. Tears ran down her cheeks. "You are alive," she said. "I thought they killed you." Jake tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his entire body. His ribs were definitely broken. His face felt swollen. One of his eyes would not open properly. "Still here," he managed to say. "Why did you do that?" Vera asked. "Why did you go?" "To protect you. But look at you now. You can barely move." Jake finally got himself into a sitting position, leaning against the wall. Every breath was agony. "Better me than you," he said. Vera stared at him. Her empathic abilities were reading his emotions. He knew. She could feel everything he felt. The pain, the determination, the refusal to become what the guards wanted him to become. "You humans are strange," she said finally. "You choose to suffer for others." "Why?" "Because someone has to," Jake said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she placed her good hands on his chest. "I am going to help you," she said. "This will hurt me, but I can take some of your pain away. Empaths can do this. You do not have to. You gave me half your food. You gave me your blanket. You gave me your water. You went to fight so I would not have to. Now it is my turn to help." She closed her silver eyes and concentrated. Jake felt warmth spread through his chest. The pain began to fade, just a little. Enough that he could breathe without wanting to scream. But he saw Vera's face tighten. She was taking his pain into herself, making it her own. "Stop," Jake said. "You are hurting yourself." "I can handle it," Vera said. But he could see tears on her face. When she finally pulled away, Jake felt better. Not healed, but better. Vera, however, collapsed onto the sleeping platform. "That took more energy than I expected," she whispered. Jake crawled over to her. "Thank you," he said. "But do not do that again. I can handle pain." "So can I," Vera said. "You are not the only one who can choose to suffer for someone else." They sat in silence for a while. Then there was a sound at the door. A quiet tapping. Jake looked up. The food slot opened, but no tray came through. Instead, something else slid across the floor. A small package wrapped in cloth. Jake crawled over and picked it up. Inside were medical supplies, bandages, pain medication, antiseptic. There was also a small piece of paper with words written in English. From Brutus. You showed mercy. I will not forget. Jake looked at the camera in the corner. The red light was still blinking. But somehow, Brutus had managed to send this anyway. There were still good people in this place. Even among the prisoners, even in this nightmare, he used the supplies to bandage his ribs as best he could. The pain medication helped. He gave some to Vera as well. For the pain she had taken from him. What happens now? Vera asked. Now we survive, Jake said. And we wait. Wait for what? Jake looked at the door. At the walls. At the cameras watching them. For a chance, he said. There is always a chance. We just have to be ready when it comes. Later that night, after Vera had fallen asleep, Jake lay on the hard floor and stared at the ceiling. His body ached. His ribs throbbed. His face felt like one giant bruise. But something had changed. Brutus had sent him supplies. That meant someone else in this prison was paying attention. Someone else saw what Jake was doing and understood. One person could not change everything, but one person could inspire others. And if enough people decided to stand together, even in a place like this, then maybe things could change. Maybe they could fight back. Jake thought about Vera. About how she had used her empathic abilities to take away his pain, even though it hurt her. About how she had thanked him for showing her basic kindness. About what Connor had said, that they wanted to see what humans were really like when there were no consequences. Connor thought he would see cruelty. He thought he would see Jake abandon Vera or hurt her. But that was not what being human meant. Being human meant choosing compassion even when it cost you something. Even when it hurt. Even when everyone else told you to be cruel. The guards wanted entertainment. They wanted to see people break. Instead, they were going to see something else. They were going to see what happened when you gave a human a reason to fight, and Jake was just getting started. 2 weeks passed since the fight. Jake's ribs healed slowly. Vera's arm grew stronger each day. They talked quietly in the cell, learning about each other. Vera told him about her home world, about the blue forests and silver rivers. Jake told her about Earth, about mountains and oceans and cities that touched the sky. But they were not alone in their planning. On the 16th day, another package came through the food slot. This one contained a tiny rolled piece of paper. Jake unrolled it carefully. The message was simple. Cell 47. Lisa, I can help. Tap twice on wall behind your bed if you want to talk. Jake looked at the wall behind the sleeping platform. He tapped twice. A minute later, a voice came through, quiet and muffled by the metal. Can you hear me? Yes, Jake said quietly. My name is Lisa Chang. I have been here for 2 years. I was an engineer before they arrested me. I have been watching what you did. You helped that Velix girl. You showed mercy to Brutus. Other prisoners are talking about it. Why are you contacting me? Jake asked. Because I think you are someone who wants to change things, and I know how to do it. But I need help. What do you know? I know the facility's security system. I know when the guards change shifts. I know where the weak points are. I have been mapping everything for months, waiting for the right time. Lisa paused. I think the right time is now. Since you arrived, other prisoners have started to hope again. Hope is dangerous here. We need to use it. Jake looked at Vera. She was listening carefully. What do you need from me? Leadership, organization. Someone the others will follow. Brutus already respects you. There are others who will too. We have 12 prisoners who have useful skills. Former soldiers, navigators, even a medic. But they need someone to unite them. What is the goal? Jake asked. Escape. But not just escape. Exposure. This place is not just a prison. It is a trafficking operation. Prisoners who are considered useless get sold to fight rings and pleasure houses across the sector. I have seen it happen. The Galactic Council does not know about this. If we can get evidence and broadcast it, we can save more than just ourselves. Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was bigger than he thought. How do we get evidence? I know where they keep the records. In the administration section. But we need a distraction to get there. We need time. And we need Vera. Why Vera? Because she is an empath. She can tell us when guards are coming. She can sense their emotions. That gives us an advantage they do not expect. Jake looked at Vera again. She nodded slowly. I can help, she said. I want to help. Over the next week, Lisa passed information through the wall. Names of prisoners who could be trusted. Schedules of guard shifts. Maps of the facility that she had memorized and described in detail. Jake committed everything to memory. Brutus sent another message, carried through a prisoner who worked in the kitchen. The message said simply, I am with you. 12 others are too. Tell us when. Jake realized he was building something. A network. A rebellion. It was dangerous. If the guards found out, they would kill everyone involved. But doing nothing was also death. It was just slower, less obvious. On the 23rd day since Vera arrived in his cell, something changed. During the morning meal, a prisoner started screaming in the recreation area. Guards rushed to respond. Jake heard the sounds of violence. Then silence. Then they dragged a body past his cell door. An elderly Velix male. His silver eyes were still open, staring at nothing. The guards made an announcement over the facility's speaker system. That prisoner tried to hide extra food. He wanted to help sick prisoners in his block. This is against regulations. This is what happens when you break regulations. Let this be a lesson. Jake felt rage burn in his chest. They killed him for showing kindness. For helping others. It was exactly what the guards wanted to stop. They wanted everyone here to become cruel and selfish. They wanted to prove that compassion was weakness. But they had just made a mistake. A big one. That night, Jake tapped on the wall. Lisa, we need to move soon. They just showed everyone that staying quiet gets you killed anyway. I know, Lisa said. I saw. Other prisoners are angry. They are scared. But mostly, they are angry. We have a chance now. People who would not join us before are willing now. When? Jake asked. 2 days. There is a supply ship scheduled to arrive. During the docking process, the power grid fluctuates. The security systems reset. We will have maybe 5 minutes when cameras are not recording. That is our window. What is the plan? Lisa explained everything. It was risky. It required perfect timing. But it could work. The next day, Vera did something unexpected. She closed her eyes and reached out with her empathic abilities. Not just to sense emotions, but to send them. She found every Velix prisoner in the facility. There were 12 of them. She connected with them, creating a network of minds that could communicate silently. What are you doing? Jake asked, seeing her strain with the effort. Building our own communication system. Vera said. One the guards cannot hear. The Velix here have been isolated. Alone. Afraid. But if we work together, we can coordinate. We can warn each other of danger. We can be stronger. When she finished, she was exhausted but smiling. 12 Velix are with us now. They will help however they can. Jake felt hope rise in his chest. They had Brutus and his fighters. They had Lisa and her technical knowledge. They had Vera and the Velix network. They had prisoners who were tired of being victims. They had a plan. Now they just needed courage. On the morning of the planned rebellion, Connor came to Jake's cell. He stood outside the door, looking through the window. I am going to enjoy what happens next, Morrison, he said. Tomorrow, you and the Velix girl are being sold. A fighting ring on the outer rim bought you both. They want to see how long a human and a Velix can survive against trained killers. I am told the record is 4 minutes. He smiled. I hope you last longer. I want them to get their money's worth. He walked away, laughing. Jake looked at Vera. We are out of time. Then we fight tonight, Vera said. Jake tapped on the wall. Lisa. Understood, Lisa said. I will pass the word. Everyone be ready at 0300 hours. That is when the shift change happens. That is when we move. The hours crawled by. Jake tried to rest but could not sleep. Vera sat beside him, her hand on his arm. She was using her empathic abilities to keep him calm. We can do this, she said. I believe in you. What if I fail? Jake asked. What if people die because of my choices? People are already dying, Vera said. They died today. They died yesterday. They will die tomorrow if we do nothing. At least this way, we fight back. At least this way, we try. At 0300 hours, the facility lights dimmed for the shift change. Jake stood up. Vera stood beside him. This was it. The door to their cell suddenly opened, not from the guards, but from Lisa. She had somehow overridden the lock. She stood in the corridor with 2 other prisoners. We have 5 minutes before cameras come back online. Move now. Jake and Vera ran into the corridor. All around them, cell doors were opening. Prisoners were streaming out. Lisa had unlocked an entire cell block. 30 prisoners. All moving at once. Split into groups, Jake said, his voice carrying command. Group 1, secure this corridor. Group 2, head to the administration section with Lisa. Group 3, with me to the communication array. Brutus, hold the main junction. Do not let guards get past you. Brutus nodded. The massive Tharnok moved to the corridor intersection with 5 other large prisoners. They would be the wall that held back any guard response. Jake ran toward the communication array with Vera and 6 others. They had to move fast. They had to get the evidence. They had to broadcast it before the guards stopped them. They turned a corner and ran straight into 2 guards. The guards reached for their weapons. Jake did not hesitate. He had learned how to fight in the recreation area. He had learned that guards expected prisoners to be weak and slow. He was neither. Jake moved fast, grabbing the first guard's shock stick before it could be activated. He twisted it out of the guard's grip and used it against him. The guard fell. The second guard tried to shoot, but Vera used her empathic abilities to flood the guard's mind with fear. The guard froze, paralyzed by phantom terrors. Another prisoner knocked him unconscious. They kept moving. Behind them, Jake heard the sound of fighting. Brutus and his group were engaging guards at the main junction. The alarm began to wail. The facility was waking up. They had minutes now. Maybe less. Jake and his group reached the administration section. Lisa was already there with her team, working on the computer systems. I am downloading everything, she said, her fingers flying across the control panel. Records of sales. Names of buyers. Evidence of torture. All of it. How long? Jake asked. 2 minutes. We might not have 2 minutes. Then hold the door. Jake turned to the corridor entrance. More guards were coming. He could hear their boots pounding on the metal floor. He raised the shock stick he had taken. The other prisoners with him prepared to fight. This was it. This was where they made their stand. The guards appeared at the end of the corridor. 6 of them, armed and armored. They saw the escaped prisoners and raised their weapons. Jake stepped forward. You can walk away right now, he said. Or, you can try to stop us. But know this, we are not afraid anymore. We are not victims anymore, and we are done letting you break people for entertainment. The guards hesitated, just for a second. Just long enough for Jake to realize that some of them were afraid. They had never seen prisoners stand together like this before. They had never seen prisoners willing to fight back. One guard turned and ran, then another. The other 4 stood their ground, but their confidence was gone. Got it, Lisa shouted. I have everything. Now we need to broadcast it. The communication array is 3 levels up, Jake said. Can we make it? We have to try. They ran. Behind them, more guards were coming. The rebellion had begun. and there was no turning back now. Jake and his group ran through the corridors with Lisa's stolen data. The facility alarms screamed. Red lights flashed. They could hear guards shouting orders and prisoners fighting back throughout the complex. The rebellion had spread faster than anyone expected. "Left here," Lisa said, reading a map on her stolen datapad. "The communication array is up the main stairwell." They turned the corner and found the stairs blocked by 4 guards. These guards did not hesitate. They opened fire. Energy bolts sizzled through the air. One prisoner behind Jake fell with a scream. Another dove for cover. Jake threw the shock stick like a spear. It hit the lead guard in the chest, disrupting his aim. Vera reached out with her empathic abilities and hit the guards with a wave of confusion and fear. Their shots went wild. Jake and 2 other prisoners rushed forward while the guards were disoriented. The fight was brutal and fast. Jake took down one guard with strikes to vulnerable joints in his armor. Another prisoner tackled a second guard. The remaining 2 guards tried to retreat, but more prisoners arrived from the other corridors. They were surrounded. They surrendered. "Take their weapons," Jake ordered. "Tie them up. We are not killers." "Jake!" Vera shouted. She was pointing down the corridor they had just left. More guards were coming. Many more. At least 20 of them. Led by Captain Connor. "Get to the communication array," Jake told Lisa. "Broadcast everything. I will buy you time." "You cannot hold that many guards alone," Lisa said. "I am not alone." Jake looked at the prisoners with him. 8 of them now. All armed with weapons taken from the guards they had captured. "We hold them here. At this choke point. They have to come through that corridor to reach the stairs. We make them pay for every meter." Vera grabbed Jake's arm. "I am staying with you." "Vera, I am staying," she said firmly. "I can sense what the guards are planning. I can give you warning. You need me." Jake wanted to argue, but there was no time. "Fine. Everyone else, take positions. Use the walls for cover. Do not let them through." Lisa ran up the stairs with 3 prisoners as guards. Jake and his group set up a defensive position at the base of the stairwell. They flipped over a metal bench to use as a barricade. They stacked supply crates to create firing positions. Connor and his guards reached the end of the corridor. He saw the makeshift barricade and Jake standing behind it. "Morrison!" He shouted. "You have made this worse for yourself. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." "No," Jake shouted back. "Your trafficking operation is over, Connor. Evidence is being broadcast to the Galactic Council right now. Every crime you committed, every prisoner you sold, all of it. You are done." Connor's face twisted with rage. "Kill them all," he ordered his guards. The guards opened fire. Energy bolts slammed into the barricade. The metal grew hot. Jake and his prisoners returned fire. They were not trained soldiers, but desperation made them focused. 2 guards fell, then a third. "They are going to flank us," Vera said suddenly. "I can sense it. 5 guards are moving through the maintenance tunnels to come up behind us." "Where?" Jake asked. Vera pointed to a vent in the wall behind them. "There." Jake pulled 2 prisoners back from the barricade. "Watch that vent. Anything comes through, shoot it." 30 seconds later, the vent cover exploded outward. Guards poured through, but Jake's prisoners were ready. They opened fire immediately. The guards, caught in the narrow opening, had nowhere to dodge. 3 went down. The other 2 retreated back into the tunnel. "Nice call," Jake told Vera. "More coming from the front," she warned. Connor had been using the flanking attempt as a distraction. While Jake dealt with the vent, Connor's main force had advanced down the corridor. They were close now. Too close. Jake could see Connor's face clearly. The Krath was smiling. Then something unexpected happened. A roar echoed through the facility. Brutus appeared at the far end of the corridor, behind Connor's guards. The massive Tharnok had brought 10 prisoners with him. They crashed into the guards from behind. The guards were caught between 2 forces. Some turned to fight Brutus, others kept firing at Jake's position. their coordination fell apart. Prisoners who had been cowering in their cells for months or years were now fighting with fury born from endless suffering. They had been broken down, humiliated, and tortured. Now, they were hitting back. Connor saw his guards falling. He saw the battle turning against him. He pulled out a communication device. "All units to the stairwell. All units. We have a breach. That means we are winning," one of the prisoners next to Jake said. "No," Vera said, her face pale. "That means he called everyone. Every guard in the facility is coming here. 40 or 50 guards at least." Jake looked at the stairwell behind him. Lisa was still up there, broadcasting the evidence. She needed more time. "Then we hold," he said. No matter what, the next few minutes were chaos. Guards came from every direction. The prisoners fought with stolen weapons and desperate courage. Jake's barricade position became the center of a battle that spread throughout 3 corridors. Prisoners fell. Guards fell. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burned metal and blood. Jake took a hit to his shoulder. The energy bolt burned through his skin. He gritted his teeth and kept fighting. Beside him, Vera was using her empathic abilities on multiple guards at once, overwhelming their minds with fear and confusion. The strain was visible on her face. Blood ran from her nose. "Vera, stop," Jake said. "You are hurting yourself." "Not stopping," she gasped. "Not until we win." Brutus reached their position, covered in blood, some of it his own. "How much longer?" he asked. "I do not know," Jake said. Then Lisa's voice came over the facility's speaker system. "Attention all guards. This is Lisa Chang. The evidence of your crimes has been broadcast to every major news network in the galaxy. The Galactic Council has received copies. Military vessels are already en route to this location. You are all under investigation for trafficking, torture, and murder. Your only chance for leniency is to surrender now." The guards who were still fighting hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. Others looked at each other uncertainly. Connor screamed in rage. "Do not stop. Kill them all. If there are no witnesses, we can deny everything." But his guards were not listening anymore. They knew it was over. One by one, they dropped their weapons and backed away. Within a minute, only Connor and 5 loyal guards were still fighting. "Stand down, Connor," Jake shouted. "It is over. It is not over until you are dead, human." Connor charged forward, directly at Jake. His 4 eyes blazed with hatred. He pulled out a knife. Something guards were not supposed to carry. He had been planning to use it on prisoners all along. Jake raised his stolen weapon, but the charge pack was empty. He threw it at Connor. It bounced off the Krath's armor. Connor kept coming. Then Vera stepped in front of Jake. She spread all 4 of her arms wide. "Stop," she said. Connor laughed. "You think you can stop me, broken girl?" "Yes," Vera said. And then she did something Jake had never seen before. She used her empathic abilities not to sense emotions or project fear. She used them to share. She opened her mind and forced Connor to feel everything. Every moment of pain from every prisoner in the facility. Every tear. Every scream. Every time someone begged for mercy and received none. Months of accumulated suffering. Years of it. All of it flooding into Connor's mind at once. Connor dropped his knife. He fell to his knees. He clutched his head and screamed. His 4 eyes rolled back. The other guards who were still standing stared in shock. Vera collapsed. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. "What did you do?" he asked. "Showed him," Vera whispered. "Showed him everything we felt. Everything he caused. He wanted to break us. Instead, I broke him." Connor was still on the ground, sobbing. His mind could not handle the weight of what he had done. The other guards threw down their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. The fighting stopped. Prisoners began to emerge from hiding spots throughout the facility. Some were injured. Some were crying. But they were all still alive. And they were free. Brutus walked over to where Jake held Vera. The big Tharnok looked down at them. "You did it, human. You started all of this with one act of kindness. You saved that girl. And because you did, you saved all of us. Jake shook his head. We all saved each other. Lisa came down the stairs with her team. She was smiling. The broadcast worked. I am receiving responses already. The Galactic Council has dispatched ships. They will be here in 3 hours. News networks are picking up the story. Everyone in the galaxy is going to know what happened here. Good, Jake said. He looked down at Vera. She was unconscious but breathing. Her empathic attack on Connor had drained her completely. Get her to the medical unit. Get everyone who is injured there too. What about you? Lisa asked, looking at Jake's burned shoulder. I will go after everyone else is taken care of. Brutus picked Vera up gently in his massive arms. I will carry her. You lead the way. They moved through the facility, past the evidence of their battle, past fallen guards and fallen prisoners, past cells that now stood empty. Their doors open. The alarms had stopped. The red lights had stopped flashing. For the first time in months or years, depending on how long each prisoner had been there, they could breathe freely. In the medical unit, they found a young Krathguard hiding in a supply closet. He came out with his hands raised. Please do not hurt me, he begged. I did not want to be here. I did not want to do this. But I had no choice. Jake studied him. What is your name? Sam. My name is Sam. Vera stirred in Brutus's arms. Even unconscious, her empathic abilities were still sensing emotions. She opened her silver eyes halfway. He is telling the truth, she whispered. He has guilt. Shame. He wanted to stop this but was afraid. Jake looked at Sam. Can you help us? We have injured people. Do you know how to use the medical equipment? Sam nodded quickly. Yes. I was trained. I will help. I will help anyone who needs it. Then get to work. For the next 3 hours, they treated the wounded and secured the facility. Guards who surrendered were locked in cells. Guards who resisted were subdued. The prisoners organized themselves, taking control of life support, food distribution, and security systems. When the Galactic Council ships finally arrived, they found not a prison, but a functioning community. Prisoners had taken charge. They had maintained order. They had cared for the injured. They had even treated the captured guards humanely, giving them food and water despite everything those guards had done. The council representatives came to the medical unit where Jake was finally getting his shoulder treated. The lead representative was a tall, elegant alien from the Quarren species. Her name was Ambassador Helena. You are Jake Morrison? She asked. Yes. You started this rebellion. I started trying to help someone. The rebellion happened because people were tired of being victims. Helena looked around the room at the wounded prisoners being cared for. At Vera, now awake and helping treat others despite her own exhaustion. At Brutus standing guard. At Lisa organizing supply distribution. At Sam the guard working alongside former prisoners to save lives. The galaxy is going to hear about this, Helena said. About what you did here. About what humans can do. I am just one person, Jake said. Yes, Helena said. One person who chose compassion over cruelty. One person who inspired others. The galaxy is going to learn that humanity's strength is not in weapons or technology. It is in your refusal to let suffering go unanswered. Jake looked at Vera. She was smiling at him. They had done it. They had survived. They had won. And they had shown the galaxy what humans were really capable of. 3 weeks after the rebellion, Jake stood in front of the Galactic Council. The chamber was massive, with seats for representatives from 200 species. All of them were watching him, some with curiosity, some with skepticism, some with something that looked like respect. Ambassador Helena spoke first. Jake Morrison, of Earth. You have been brought before this council to provide testimony regarding the events at the Krath detention complex. We have reviewed the evidence provided by Lisa Chang and the other prisoners. We have interviewed the guards who were captured. We have inspected the facility ourselves. But we want to hear your account directly. Jake took a breath. His shoulder still ached from the energy bolt wound. He had refused advanced medical treatment until all the other prisoners were healed first. Where do you want me to start? He asked. Start with the girl, Helena said. The Velix named Vera. Tell us what happened when they put her in your cell. So Jake told them. He described how Vera had been thrown onto the floor of his cell, broken and bleeding. How the guards expected him to hurt her or ignore her. How he chose to help her instead, sharing his food and water, making a splint from his own clothing, cleaning her wounds. Why did you make that choice? Another council member asked. This one was Krath. Like the guards at the facility. You had limited resources. Helping her meant suffering yourself. Why not simply let her die? Jake looked directly at the Krath representative. Because she was hurt. Because she was afraid. Because I could help. Those are the only reasons I needed. But humans are practical creatures, the Krath representative said. You understand cost and benefit. There was no benefit to helping her. There was every benefit, Jake said. Helping someone who needs help is what makes us human. It is what makes us people. Without that, we are just animals fighting over scraps. He continued his testimony. He described the fighting pit, where he refused to kill Brutus. He described the beatings and the starvation. He described meeting Lisa and planning the rebellion. He described the battle and how Vera used her empathic abilities to stop Connor. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Finally, Ambassador Helena spoke. You are aware that this incident has caused a crisis between the Krath government and the Galactic Council. The Krath claim this was an isolated incident, that most of their facilities are legitimate and humane. That may be true, Jake said. But this facility was not isolated. It had been operating for 6 years. Hundreds of prisoners were trafficked. Someone in the Krath government knew. Maybe many people knew. They just did not care until it became public. A representative from a species Jake did not recognize stood up. I have a question. You could have simply escaped. You and Vera and a few others. You had opportunities during the chaos, but instead, you chose to fight for everyone, to gather evidence and broadcast it. Why take that risk? Because escape would not have stopped the trafficking, Jake said. Other prisoners would still be sold. Other people would still suffer. We had a chance to end it. We had to try, even knowing you might die, especially knowing that. Some things are worth dying for. Stopping this was one of them. The questioning continued for hours. Representatives asked about the battle, about the casualties, about how the prisoners organized themselves after taking control. Jake answered everything honestly. He did not try to make himself sound like a hero. He just told the truth. Finally, Ambassador Helena dismissed him. We will deliberate on these matters. You will be notified of our decisions. Jake left the chamber and found Vera waiting outside. She looked so different now. Her injuries had healed completely. Her white hair was clean and brushed. She wore simple blue clothing that matched her skin. She looked healthy, happy. How did it go? She asked. I told them the truth, Jake said. Now we wait to see if they care. They walked through the council station together. It was a beautiful place, with gardens and fountains, so different from the gray metal of the prison. Prisoners from the facility were scattered throughout the station, waiting for transportation back to their homeworlds. Jake saw Brutus in the garden, sitting on a bench that groaned under his weight. The big Tharnok waved. He is going home tomorrow, Vera said. Back to his family. Good. He deserves that. So do you, Vera said. The council is arranging transport for you back to Earth. You can see your sister again. Jake had thought about that a lot in the past 3 weeks. Going home. Returning to his old life. But something felt wrong about that. What about you? He asked Vera. I am going home too. My brother is waiting for me. She paused. But I have been thinking. About what we did. About what we could still do. What do you mean? Vera stopped walking and turned to face him. There are other facilities like the one we escaped from. Maybe not run by the Krath, but run by someone. The galaxy is big. There are places where people suffer, and no one helps them. I want to change that. Jake felt something stir in his chest. Hope. Purpose. You want to find them? The other facilities, yes. And I want to stop them. But I cannot do it alone. I need someone who understands that compassion is strength. Someone who will fight for people he does not even know. Someone like you. Jake looked at her silver eyes. He had saved her life when she was broken and afraid. Now she was asking him to save others. It was dangerous. It would be hard. They might fail. But it was also the right thing to do. I am in, Jake said. Vera smiled. I was hoping you would say that. 2 days later, the Galactic Council announced its decisions. The Krath detention complex was permanently closed. All guards involved in the trafficking were arrested and charged with crimes. The Krath government issued a formal apology and agreed to inspections of all their detention facilities. Most importantly, the Council created a new task force dedicated to finding and shutting down illegal prisons and trafficking operations across the galaxy. Jake and Vera were offered positions with the task force. So was Sam, the young Krath guard who had helped them. They all accepted. Lisa chose to return to Earth, but she promised to help them with technical support whenever they needed it. Brutus went back to his homeworld but stayed in contact. If you ever need someone to break down doors, he told Jake, you know where to find me. 1 month after the rebellion, Jake and Vera stood outside a facility on a distant world. Intelligence suggested this place was operating a similar trafficking operation. They were not alone. A team of 30 volunteers stood with them, former prisoners who wanted to help, council representatives who believed in the mission, even a few former guards who wanted to redeem themselves. Sam was among them. The young Krath had proven himself capable and brave. He had skills from his time as a guard that were useful for infiltration and intelligence gathering. Are you ready? Vera asked Jake. Jake looked at the facility. He could see guards patrolling. He could see high walls and security systems. He knew there were people inside suffering right now. People who had lost hope. People who thought no one cared about them. I am ready, Jake said. They approached the facility's entrance. The guards saw them coming and raised their weapons. They expected the group to stop, to retreat, to show fear. Instead, Jake kept walking. Vera walked beside him. The entire team moved forward with purpose and determination. The guards did not understand what they were seeing. This was not an attack. This was something else. This was justice coming for them. One guard pressed his communication device. We have intruders at the main gate. Unknown species. They are not stopping. Jake heard the transmission through his own communication device. They had already hacked the facility's network. Sam's work. The young Krath was good at this. We are not intruders, Jake said, his voice broadcast through every speaker in the facility. We are liberators. We are here for the prisoners you have been trafficking. We are here to expose your crimes. You can surrender now and face council justice, or you can resist and face us. Choose. The guards at the gate looked at each other. They had heard stories about what happened at the Krath facility. Stories about a human and a Velix who led a rebellion. Stories that seemed impossible, but now those stories were standing in front of them. One guard dropped his weapon. Then another. The third guard activated an alarm. But by then, it was too late. Jake's team moved forward. Vera used her empathic abilities to sense where the prisoners were being held. Sam used his knowledge of facility layouts to guide them through the complex. The operation took 4 hours. There was some resistance from guards who chose to fight. There were injuries on both sides. But in the end, the facility was secured. 87 prisoners were freed. Evidence of trafficking was gathered and transmitted to the council. The facility administrators were arrested. It was the first of many operations. Over the next year, Jake and Vera shut down 12 facilities across the galaxy. They freed over 1,000 prisoners. They arrested hundreds of guards and administrators. They became known throughout the galaxy. Some called them heroes. Others called them troublemakers. Jake did not care what they were called. He only cared about the results. News of their work spread. Other species began to understand something about humans that they had not known before. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the smartest, or the fastest, or the most advanced, but they had something that many species had lost or never possessed. They had the ability to look at suffering and choose to act, to put themselves at risk for strangers, to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Not all humans were like this, of course. Humans could be cruel and selfish, just like any species. But enough of them chose compassion. Enough of them chose to help. And that made a difference. The galaxy began to change. Other species started creating their own task forces to fight trafficking and abuse. Laws were strengthened. Oversight was increased. It was not perfect. There were still facilities that operated in secret. Still people who suffered, but there were also people fighting back now. People who had been inspired by what Jake and Vera did. 2 years after the rebellion at the Krath facility, Jake and Vera returned there. It had been converted into a memorial. The cells were empty now. The walls covered with the names of prisoners who had died there over the years. In the center of the complex stood a statue of 2 figures, one human, one Velix, standing together. Vera looked at the statue. "They made us look too heroic," she said. "We just did what anyone should do," Jake agreed. An elderly Quarren approached them. She had been a prisoner at the facility. Jake remembered her. She had been in the medical unit after the battle, injured but alive. "You saved my life," she said to Jake. "I wanted to thank you." "You do not need to thank me," Jake said. "Yes, I do," she said. "You showed me that the galaxy had not forgotten people like me, that someone still cared. That is worth more than you know." She walked away. Jake and Vera stood in silence for a while, looking at the memorial. "Do you ever regret it?" Vera asked. "The choice you made that day when they threw me into your cell. Everything that happened after. All the fighting. All the risk. Do you ever wish you had made a different choice?" Jake thought about that day, about seeing Vera broken and afraid on the floor, about deciding to help her, about everything that followed. The pain, the danger, the battles, but also the lives saved. The facilities closed, the change they had created. "No," Jake said. "I do not regret it, not for a second." Vera took his hand, her 4 fingers wrapped around his. "Good," she said. "Because I have intelligence on 3 more facilities that need to be dealt with." Jake smiled. "Then we have work to do." They left the memorial and walked back to their ship. Sam was waiting there with the rest of their team. Brutus had decided to join them permanently. Lisa had developed new technology to help them detect hidden facilities. More volunteers had signed up. The mission was growing. As their ship lifted off from the memorial site, Jake looked down at the converted prison one last time. It had been a place of suffering. Now it was a reminder of what could be accomplished when people chose to stand together. When they chose compassion over cruelty. When they chose to fight for what was right. The galaxy was still full of darkness. Still full of places where people suffered. But there was light too. And that light was spreading, one facility at a time. One freed prisoner at a time. One choice at a time. Connor had thrown Vera into Jake's cell expecting cruelty, expecting entertainment, expecting humans to be weak and selfish. Instead, he had learned the truth about humanity. And the galaxy had learned it too. Humans measured strength not by who they could break, but by who they chose to save. And once a human decided someone needed saving, there was nothing in the galaxy that could stop them from trying. That was the real strength of humanity, not in weapons or technology or physical power, but in the simple, profound choice to care about someone else's suffering and do something about it. Jake Morrison had made that choice. And because he did, thousands of others made it too. The galaxy would never be the same.